Welcome to another episode of the Afterlife Podcast. This is your host, Pooja Chilikuri. Joining me today is Dr. Mary Helen Hensley. I've had the joy of meeting Mary Helen recently at the screening of a film, Every Soul Knows. She was featured in the film because she's a near-death experiencer. And I've had the joy of listening to her as a panelist and getting a big warm hug from her. So I knew I had to bring her on and have her share her story. She's an author, a speaker, chiropractor, a metaphysical healer, and a near-death experiencer. Thank you so much for joining us today, Mary Helen.
Thank you. I also do my own dishes and take out the trash.
Those are important functions. They should get more credit, right?
I laugh so hard when you hear the credits roll and you hear that introduction, and I laugh because I'm able to nearly step outside of that and go, is that me she's talking about? Because I just took the trash out, and I
Yeah.
would regularly be cleaning up after my dogs, and people forget that you know I think the best lived lives are those that are so imbalanced with everything that's available to us. It's not always reaching this high state of spirituality. It's finding the joy in the ordinary. And that is, if there's a big take back from having been dead, it's that. It's being able to come back in and create magic from the mundane and finding that joy.
Mhm.
Um,
And
Even
that's
when
what I've
times are
loved about
difficult.
you.
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's what I love about you because I know you've been on the other side, but you live this life fullest. I've seen that, so I appreciate that. And with that, I do want you to walk us a little bit through that experience that you had.
Absolutely. So I will preface that with I'm sitting here in my childhood home because my
Mhm.
mother's doing hospice right now. And what's really interesting is it was here that when my parents found out they were pregnant with me, um, my mother had the German measles, and she was told on six different occasions to abort the child because everything wasn't going to be okay. And so my father, who was a minister, had what he called a celestial visit. And it was very interesting because it wasn't angelic or anything that you would expect to fit within that religious, box. But he was, of course, so open and accepting to it because it happened to him. And so it's so funny being back here, kind of where it all happened, the room where it happened. And that was really when things began because not only was I not supposed to be okay, and if I made it, um, my father is now having, as a minister, to deal with the fact that some otherworldly being there were two, has stepped into his world, upset his paradigm of what real and not real is. But it happened to him and he had to accept this. And so this was 1968. And not only is he being told that the baby is going to be okay, but that she is going to have a very unusual life. So this is long before ultrasound. This is long before um, we had gender reveals. This was these beings saying that you and your wife will have to help create a safe space. And I laugh sometimes because I often think sometimes they created too safe a space because um, by not sharing, by keeping it quiet and close, I'm finding now in later life, the people that are now stepping back into my story, it sounds just it literally sounds like a fantasy, like something that's made up to them because they weren't involved in that process. And so it's really interesting to walk and weave and navigate that process as well. Um, because it's all about the experiences and how you handle them. So things were always a little bit odd. So when I was 5 years old, we had what I refer to as the kitchen table talk, which is my father was, huge, big weightlifter, football coach, minister, and he had this booming Southern voice. And I remember being 5 years old, and my parents sat me down at the kitchen table, and my dad was unnerved. And so he said, Sugar, Do you know the difference between alive and dead? So imagine hearing that as a 5-year-old. And I'm like, uh, I didn't even know how to answer this. But what was happening was their 5-year-old had had a relationship for as long as she could speak with my grandfather. And my grandfather, Dr. Garland Clark, was my mother's father. And I would talk about him. We called him Judge. I would talk about him and what he had said to me or things he would told me. And the next thing that my mother could verify because she was a child and had seen it or whatever. And it got to the point where I think my parents just finally cracked and they sat me down and they were like, do you understand the difference between what it means to be alive and dead? And I was like, well, I guess I don't. And so the fact that Judge was always part of my life and the fact that he had died when I was 1 was what was throwing my parents off track. Again, it did not fit within the paradigm of what they had convinced themselves or lived within was real and not real. But no differently than I'm sitting here talking to you, and we are not in the same space. We're not even in the same state. Yet we're talking in real time. Speaking to someone who was not in the earthly realm for me was just like this. He was real. If someone asked me, is Pooja real? And I'm like, of course.
Yeah.
But I don't have the tangible proof. I'm not touching you. We've hugged in the past. That's now a memory for me. So I remember a body. I remember that connection. But are we talking in real time, but in physical presence? No. So speaking to my grandfather was much the same way. It was just as real, just as informative, just as visceral and loving, only he wasn't physically present. So, you fast forward to a lifetime of things that are happening to me where I'm having prophetic dreams and I could see things or know things before they would happen. Then you move into the awkward teenage years, and now I'm off to college. And it was so interesting because the gifts never went away. They were there. The abilities were always there, but I was changing around them. And so was the atmosphere in which I was safe to express. At home, because my siblings were older than me, everybody was gone. So we were free and easy to talk about things and revel in the glory of it. It was just amazing. It was wow. My father would always just be like, unbelievable. That's wow, all the time. But then I leave this cocoon and I go out into a world where nobody knows what the hell I'm talking about. And there is no background, there is no connection to the story. There's just me and my word. And so this was something that I learned very quickly. Well, we're just not going to talk about this. And until I get to college and things start happening. And now people are watching kind of out of the corner of their eye going, how did that happen? Well, I dreamt that, or whatever. But I get to college and I'm, making light of everything that's going on. I was a kid. And I always joke about the fact that the extent that I was using my gifts was I would know the score of a basketball game. I was a cheerleader and I'd go cheer, cheer, cheer. And and then we'd come back and crack open a beer and look at the scores of the basketball game. And that was it. That was me serving humanity. So then I got out of college. I had graduated. I had 2 degrees in communications and graphic design. So I was a budding artist. And I moved, as you did in the South, to Charleston, South Carolina, because that's where my boyfriend was from. And when you were still dating the same guy when you graduated, your mom was already picking out the china and the silver, and you were getting married. And so off we went to Charleston, and I wasn't even 6 months out of school when on December 14th, 1991, I was going to a party at the sign company where I worked because for all my big degrees in graphics and I'd worked in TV, I couldn't get a job. And so I ended up working for this sign company in Charleston called Sign It Quick. It was started by Frank and Teresa Aucoin, and they ended up being some of the greatest mentors I've ever had in my life because I arrived with my degrees and they put a mop in my hand. So I learned to quickly school myself in what I thought achievement looked like. And they worked me from the ground up so that I could understand the importance of knowing every person within the organization and how their job work. And that's a very micro of the macro of human existence. When you have a deep appreciation and understanding for what goes into each individual's job so that you might carry out your job. And they had, unbeknownst to me at the time, given me one of the greatest gifts that has carried me throughout my entire life. So I find myself in this space, and we're now going to have our Christmas party. So I was living in an apartment, and there was a major highway just down the road from the apartment, and I had left to go. It was hot. It was Charleston, South Carolina. I was wearing a Santa Claus t-shirt and Bermuda shorts, and I got to the stoplight where this I call it the proverbial crossroads, metaphorically and metaphysically, of my life was here. And I was sitting at this stoplight, and it took a long time for it to change. I had to go across traffic and go towards town. And there were lanes, 4 lanes here on this side. And I just waited for my light to turn. Well, my light turned, and I made it across 1, 2, 3. And in this lane here, I looked over, and a car was hurtling at me. And it was clocked later on at 75 miles an hour that this was going. It was an elderly gentleman who had nearly killed a couple earlier in the year and should have been taken off the road, but he wasn't. Thank goodness, or I wouldn't be telling you this story. Um, so instead of slowing down for the stoplight, he blew through the red light. And it was so far, like I'd already had time. This tells you how long the light had already been red. And I'd already had time to make it all the way across the oncoming traffic. And in that last lane, that was where it happened. But what was really interesting was at that moment, time stood still. It came to a crawl, and I was able to look and see him inching towards me. And it was in that moment that everything I knew to be true was turned on its ear, because there was no fear. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm getting ready to die. I knew I was getting ready to die, and that was okay. It was like, okay, I'm finished with this coat now. I'm going to throw it off and walk on into the next room. And it was just a sense of knowing. There wasn't this kind of like I had to unwind into rediscovering everything. It was immediate. I was just like, oh, here we are. And at that time, there was a noise, a sound. This is why all my work that I do revolves around frequency, because it was here that I discovered that everything we do is frequency. They're just sound and light waves on, at different points on the same beam of light. And as that car was inching towards me, I was extremely aware of the fact that this was my choice. I wasn't being made to go. I wasn't being made to stay. I had a choice. Hey, you're 21. Are you done? Have you accomplished what you came here to do? What's going on? What are you going to do here? And I was like, oh yeah. Oh. And I looked at the car, and I was like, this is inevitable. What happens after this? I'm making this choice. And so as I was making that decision, I decided in that moment, that's going to hurt. Do I want to be in my body when that car hits me, or do I want to be out of my body when that car hits me? And it was a clear choice for me, because strangely enough, I hear my Southern Baptist preacher's daughter mind going, oh, I've already done this before. Oh, I've already done that. I've already done this before. I remember this part. And I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm not staying in the body, because that is it might be brief, but boy, that smack is going to hurt. And the second I made that decision, I was up and out of the body, accompanied by this incredible drone, this noise, this pulsing, beautiful sound. And then I looked down, and everything exploded back into action. Everything sped up. And I'm like, wow, I'm not even dead yet. This was the weird bit. I am now getting ready to observe my death. So not only have I'm knocked out of the body, but I was out of the body before I got hit. I used to joke around and say I was literally knocked out of my body at 75 miles an hour. I was already out when the car actually hit. And so what was so important about that is I got to experience watching myself And it was like if you were in the laundry room watching your jeans tumble around the dryer, you're just waiting for them to be done. You don't have any emotional attachment to your jeans. Um, I'm standing and I'm watching and I see that body there. And I know I've just been in it, but I'm not like, oh no, my life was too short. Da, da, da. It's nothing like that. It's just this sense of knowing. And I'm looking, and as everything speeds up and I'm here watching the body in the car strikes me. It's what we call a T-bone accident. So I'm like this, and it folded my car in the driver's side in half. And I watched my head go out the window. I watched my neck snap back in. I knew I could still connect with and feel the fact that I'd just broken. I was like, oh, I just broke my neck. And I'm like, wow, but I feel so good. And I'm looking at the body, which now falls back against the seat. I'm strapped in with the seatbelt and I'm like a little rag doll. The seat has folded up under me, glass is shattered. I blew this window out with my head and I felt nothing but, huh, how interesting. And so as the car spun around and it came to a halt, and I'm still observing this, a really neat thing happened. And that sound is still playing in the background. You know, of course, traffic is screeching to a halt. I'm like the dead girl in the car there. But I look back at the traffic light that I'd been sitting at, and a couple of cars behind me had been a girl I went to college with. Now, Charleston at that time is like 350,000 people. And we went to college in a town about 4 hours away. And how she happened, I lived with her for my first 2 years of college. And she happens to be sitting there. And she didn't even live in that part of town. And I remember the very moment that I connected with her when she realized who was in the car. She was just a passenger or a driver in this car who's watching an accident take place in front of her. And you're horrified, but then it became personal because then she realized, oh my gosh, that's Mary Helen. And I'll never forget that moment because that is when, for a brief moment, even though you know what's happening, I had this urge to go, ma'am, I'm okay. Woo, it's me. And, with my personality and she knowing me so well by having lived in such close proximity, she'd be like, okay. But I couldn't get that through because I couldn't take the experience away from her. And I had no mastery of intervening at that point with, I'm still tethered to the body, but I didn't know how to operate anything. There were no, where were the instructions? There were no instructions. But I remember that moment so distinctly because it was just wow. I could feel her angst. I could feel her pain. And the weird thing is I'm the one who's dead, but I don't feel that. I didn't feel like I needed to clamor to try to get back into that body. It was like I'd taken, like I said, a pair of tight jeans off and whoo, I can breathe. Or like when you get home at night and throw your bra off in the corner and like, wow, I can breathe again. It was very much that way. You're concentrated on the here and now and not what you've just been. And in that moment, as everything started to gather, I saw a few things take place. One of those being my old roommate. And another thing being that a woman came up to the car. So imagine there's the car that's smashed and my body is still in it. I'm pinned. I look like a little doll, suspended animation. I'm like not moving, not breathing. And this woman walks up and puts her name and phone number through the windows on the front seat of the car. And to this day, it is so peculiar. I'm like, I wonder what she was thinking because I wasn't connecting with her. I was just watching what she was doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, she either had to be somewhere or she was too afraid to get involved in the moment or the fact that she was that close to a corpse. And she leaves her name and phone number as a witness on the front seat of the car. And then I watched her walk away. And then the next thing I could see was someone in uniform had arrived, is walking around the car, assessing the situation. And then I remember seeing him reach through the driver's or the passenger side where the windows were also blown out and turning the engine of the car off so it didn't explode. And I was like, wow. And that's the last thing I remember seeing. And then the music changed. It was like a scene change. And I went from this droning noise to this beautiful, still, I can't, there aren't words. Um, we call it the music of the spheres, because it sounds pretty. It's this celestial symphony. I've been working with frequency for my entire adult life, 33 years now. And there still isn't anything here. We try to recreate, we try to connect. I work with the most magnificent frequency guru on this planet, Greg Papania. And he has created something called signs, as in SINES, the sine wave, signs music, and his ability to connect and master frequency, tuning it into 432 and creating these just explosive waves of deep connection where words aren't necessary for people. And I've been using this in my healing work for many, many years, because just because I'm the one who died and came back with these abilities, what I most importantly came back with was the fact that if you teach people how to access that, they have them too. They can do it too. And so Greg has tapped in on that, and we have this beautiful, beautiful creation. And even his fabulous, amazing music pales in comparison to what the symphony of the spheres was. It was just because it's not from here. We don't have anything here to replicate it, but boy, he gets darn close. Whew, he's a genius. So that's what was happening. There was just these sounds, these frequencies, this amazing music, the most perfect symphony in tune, but it was like it was playing a song just for me. And I was, and we each have that, but we each have that same symphony, but then we each have our own soloist. And it was so apparent that that was my music, that was mine, it was accompanying me. But I was still very aware that I was attached to. This is when people talk about the cord and being attached, which I have come to realize is a frequency. I'm attached to this body and attached to this space, but I'm having this experience. And it was here that everything unfolded. It's still, I've told this story 1,000 million times. And so, but you're transported back every time. So I get into that space and I'm just like bathing in it. I am it. It's like having the most glorious shower, and the temperature is perfect and you are perfect and you're breathing and you're just part of everything around you and not thinking about anything else. And that's what it felt like. I was, in that space, and there was like, oh my gosh, was that heaven home? No, that's not what it was. Can you imagine? But it was like I was in there shaking off all of the work I had just done, shaking off any misconceptions, the stupidity I needed to don in order to have the human experience, the forgetfulness, the immersive experience. I was walking out into the light going, whoo, that was deep. And that's what it was like. And I stayed in this space. I don't know how long I was in this space, but I stayed in this space until all of a sudden the atmosphere in front of me started to take shape. And when it did, I'm watching, and these beings, like literally these beings, stepped forward out of the atmosphere. And again, not angelic, not what I'd learned in religion or anything like this. They were just these beings that had taken on the shape of elderly gentlemen. And people are like, why? And it's because as a child, there was nothing that I wanted to do more than I used to hang out in the nursing homes. And maybe it was because I could see outside of the realm. I loved watching the fireworks around people who were getting ready to die, because it was so different than what you would think death is, where you're like dimming the light. It was so opposite. And I loved their stories. I loved knowing that they had experienced a time that I hadn't been here. I just liked talking to them. I loved making them feel heard. That was so rewarding for me, that a child, was interested in listening to what they had to say, that their life had such meaning and value. And now, just because they were old and decrepit and sitting in a nursing home, that they still had just as much value as they did when they were young and fabulous and out doing their work. And I was always connected to that. And so it made complete sense that these guiding beings, my watchdogs, my cheerleaders, and that's what I realized they were. These were two of my primary guides who had taken
Mhm.
form and stepped up and allowed me to
Mhm.
see them. And I was like, so guys, that's true. We have guides. Um, and what's really interesting about that process is it's not like they're not like hovering over your shoulder. It's the same way as I am Mary Helen, the mother, the doctor. I said earlier, I took trash out. We have multiple roles within a lifetime. And so within the spirit realm, it works the same way. A guide's not just, hey, I'm Pooja's guide. Yeah, I'm Pooja's guide, but I also have to go do a pickup at 3 o'clock over here.
Mhm.
It's not like their whole life revolves around just being your guide. These
Mhm.
are individuals who have areas of expertise that coincide what you are doing while here on that mission. And guides from lifetime to lifetime change.
Mhm.
And so, they are, but they can also, they change, but they're there simultaneously for all of eternity with you. How does that, like, how do you even make that um understandable? They come and they go depending on what's happening in your life, but you have primary who are always there, always aware, yet they're able to go off and do, I can go to the grocery store and still be my daughter's mother.
Mhm.
So that's, that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So they're there and they're making their presence known, but I didn't get it straight away. I was watching them come in and I was just like, I know you, I know you, I know you. And then I knew who they were. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, that was the homecoming. Whew. It was crazy, that they were there and there was just, hey, everything's okay. Oh, there I am dead in the car, but I'm good. I'm okay, And it was when they arrived that I began, I guess so cliche to say the life review that that I was able to go back, but this is where the unlearning took place. This is where the unbecoming of everything I had become to that point. This is where it happened. And suddenly I'm in like what's like a 360 arena and I'm watching elements of my life as Mary Helen playing out, but they're playing out simultaneously. This is where it got really interesting. So my perception of time, my perception of what it means to be, in a linear timeline imploded right there, all gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is all happening simultaneously. And I'm watching me over here as a 5-year-old getting that kitchen table talk. I'm watching me go off to college as a 17-year-old. I'm watching me learning how to drive. I'm watching the 12th grade, the 12-year-old spelling bee. I'm like, all of these things that are taking place. I'm watching me be mean to Amy instead of being kind and feeling horrible about that and going up and always trying to make up. Like you're watching all of these things because at 21, I haven't committed murder, I haven't done anything that we would consider horribly bad, but in the grand scheme of what a soul is learning on the intricate level, the fine tuning, those
Mhm.
insidious opportunities not to be excellent,
Mhm.
that's what you're watching unfold in conjunction with all the things that you did really well.
Mhm.
And then it's here where you're looking and realizing, oh gosh, no one of those is more important than the others. They were all important. Holy cow. So as you're watching this unfold around you, now you go, oh my gosh, the timeline there, oh, it's not what we think it is. It's not time marching forward. It's weaving in and out. It looks like a wicker chair where multiple timelines are woven in and we're learning and experience and grabbing. And it's just wow. It's just wow.
Yeah.
And in that moment, once I realized, once that sunk in, I suddenly remembered, oh gosh, I remember exactly why I went back and did that. And rather than somebody forcing me to go back into an incarnation where now I've got a broken body, I'm like, I can't wait to get back in. And I'm looking around, realizing there's no one judging me. It's me. I'm architect of this reality. So I'm going back. I get to go. And it's crazy because it's that sudden, oh, yes. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I remember. Because I actually like that girl. I like the one who's in the car. She was really funny and she's very daring and a risk taker and she does a lot of stupid stuff. And I like that. I like that persona. I'm not ready to shed that character. I like her. There are things I want to do as her. There are
Mhm.
people I want to reach and touch because that personality and the way she is really the right one for the job in that particular circumstance.
Mhm.
So I'm not asking anybody for permission, but I'm looking at those guides and I remember the feeling. I swell right now. Um, oh yeah, you can go back, but guess what, sunshine? You don't get to go back the same. Oh, okay. Well, sure. What does that mean? And what was happening energetically there is the bar was getting raised because I'd been allowed to sit in my own ignorance for those 21 years. And guys, let me tell you right now, I know you go down these NDE rabbit holes and oh my gosh, they're amazing. Oh, that story fabulous. Those of us who were that thick, who didn't reach a designated time where we unfolded it ourselves, where we unwrapped that package and opened it without having to die, that's who we are. So don't fool yourselves. We're no better than you are. We are no more, in fact, we are less evolved because you're just getting to watch it on the internet and getting the picture. We had to go and do the actual death, not because we're just so fabulous and we're this amazing servants to humanity. We're the people who we have such good sense of humors about our own stupidity that we want to share it with you because it's really funny. And that's who we are, the NDEers who've touched that space. We had to touch that space because there was something lacking in the storyline that we had created where we hadn't reached it ourselves. So pat yourself on the shoulder right now if you're watching this, because guess what? You got to go into the energy and the space of that type of experience without actually having to die. And that shows where you are on your path in evolution. So there I was, and they did in fact raise the bar because now I could come back in and do weird stuff. I could touch people and I could see their stories like movies in my head and see exactly where they dropped the ball in the past and created an illness in the present. And life is unfolding at lightning speed. And so I went back in and have been doing it ever since. I was 21 and now I'm 56 and I'm still as jacked up and excited about it as I was when it happened. So, it's like being plugged into some kind of infinite, a battery pack that never goes out, um, and that's really what took place. And so, what I've been doing all along is working in service, not just to other people, but in service to myself. Because one of the greatest things that happened in the great unbecoming when you land in that space is that you unbecome the realization of what's pounded into us in the earthly experience that is so much part of our story. It's so much part of pulling the veil down. And I want you to hear this. It is that we are told from the minute we arrive that our worth and our value lies in how much we give to everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the greatest cosmic joke ever because we then judge ourselves based on how much we're giving. And then we end up giving to the point where we've got nothing left for ourselves, or we're giving the best of ourselves to people and then we work with the breadcrumbs. And so many diseases of midlife revolve around this, where people have ensconced themselves in the idea, they move from, the energy of the maiden to the mother to the crone. The crone is the most beautiful space to be in because it's like you look back and you go, well, Dad, look at this with wisdom. And I see where everything I did was about being in service. You can do them simultaneously. You can give, you can be in something, but not of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we now spend all of this time trying to unwind, unravel, unlearn that our value as human beings is not found in how much we give, but the synergistic exchange. It's landing into the space where we realize that we are absolutely worthy of receiving as much as we give. And so I learned that, I learned with my own lessons and bumps and bruises along the way, that I give for the joy of giving. I talk to you for the joy of doing that. I'm receiving as much as I am now. I don't feel an obligation that I've got to go out and save everybody's lives and go, people, wake up. Everything's okay. That's not where my value lies. It's where my fun is. And so what it does is it starts, and it happens in every major religion. And it starts people on this footprint of, well, unless I give of myself, then I'm not valuable in the eyes of the Lord. Then we get into school. Keep going, keep going. We're learning. Nobody's training anymore to be a carpenter or a plumber or a mechanic. It's like, keep going, keep getting education, put more money out, keep doing that, because what's happening is they're now moving up, 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 up to the point where they've finally reached a pinnacle where they are so far in debt and they are now going to pay it back, and they're paying higher taxes because they're so educated. And we've invalidated the work with the hands. We've invalidated the idea that someone who finds their joy in being on the underside of a car, tinkering with the engine so that you can drive safely from A to B, that they're somehow no better than a doctor or lawyer. And I'm like, wow. And so we're in that beautiful unbecoming of how important it is, every role, everything that we do here. And so, that is the biggest thing, I think, taking away from the near-death experience is understanding that all experiences are equally and beautifully valid, and that we are unbecoming this idea through our religion, through our family relationships. It's like watching how much you gave, how much you did is how much you get back. And um, this idea that we aren't enough, that the roles that we came, if people understood how the earthly experience actually works and the availability of coming in and out as many times as we need to, not because we're trapped here. I hear this all the time. We're not trapped in anything, because if I got out, you can get out. And I'm not a genius, but you can get out, but you choose to come back into something until you get it right, until you perfect what earth had to offer. Not because you're not worthy, or not because you're this divine, amazing, omnipotent creature coming into a confined space, coming into the 3D, coming into a pair of pants that are too tight, and you find your way out of them. You suddenly wake up one day and go, oh, it doesn't matter if I'm 10 pounds heavier than what they say the goal weight is. I'm a really awesome person, no matter what I look like. It's like these stupid things that we buy into that validate who and what we are. And it's so much fun then kind of unweaving and unwinding through that. And so I find such joy in being able to share the story, not because I feel like it's my duty and obligation because I was dead. Now I've got to come back and tell everybody, and it's my job to save everyone. Whoever wants to listen to this, all they have to do is go on YouTube, do whatever. And then guess what? If they don't watch. It's that simple. And so that's kind of when you go in, sorry, I have to go on a roll with this because it puts you into a space and an energy of that's what it was like to be dead. And every day I'm grateful for it. And I wake up every day, regardless of what pain I'm in, or, the result of having broken your neck and lost your hearing and eyes. And, there's a lot that's behind it. I wake up every day and I ask one question. You did it, sunshine. You made it to another day. Is the pain you're in right now bigger than what you have on schedule for today? No. And maybe one day I'll wake up and it will be, but it ain't now. And so as I move into this phase of life, where I'm watching my friends who are just in horrors, oh, my knees, oh, my back, or whatever. I've been broken physically since that accident took place. And so I have had the distinct advantage of learning how to live with a body that is limited in certain ways. And guess what? I have expanded in other ways that have carried the weight of that, So where the body is not able to maybe always do its bidding, where I've gone spiritually, emotionally, intellectually, I can carry that in spades, no problem. And so that's what I ask. And there are people out there who are in emotional pain. Is the emotional pain that you're in bigger than what you want to do today? And for some people, the answer is going to be yes. And they're going to be like, I don't want to be here any longer. And so what I hope for them, the benefit of knowing what happens when we die is, guess what? You get out, you're the one who you realize suddenly that you put yourself in here and that you brought yourself to the brink of a pain that made you even contemplate wanting to exit this planet. And then you suddenly realize, oh shit, I put myself here. All right, let me go back in. What do I want to do? Who am I here for? Am I here for me, or am I trying to be here for somebody else? Am I waiting for somebody else to save me, or am I realizing that I'm writing the script as I go? I'm writing in my own saving plan at the end. People get the opportunity to connect with this idea. And I went through this in my own household with one of my children, and we spent a decade of She just didn't want to be here. And she was so open and honest about that. And it was, for me as a parent, it was one of the most beautiful experiences, because your natural instinct as a parent of a child is going to be like, no, don't do it. Don't leave it. You've got so much to live for. I'm like, let's talk through this. What does this look like for you? Because I'm not going to force you to stay somewhere, because I could go to sleep and you could do something. I'm not going to live with the burden of the idea that, oh, I turned my head and she did something. That's no way to live. So you talk to the person, you talk to that individual, a sister, a brother, a niece, a nephew, a child, and you go, how can I assist you in this? And I'm not saying, how can I assist you in staying here? How can I assist you in what it is you came here? Because all of a sudden they take a breath and they go for it. They start to reconnect with, hold on a second. You're not making this about you. You're not making this about your pain, your fear, your loss. You're creating a space for me to remember that I put myself here. And they take another breath. And suddenly they start to reconnect. Suddenly it's not quite so hopeless. Because life and death, what are we going to judge, that somebody ate McDonald's all their life and died of a heart attack? That's not suicide. It's just slower. We haven't got the right to judge in any way, shape, or form, but we can do it. We do it, certainly. And guess who we're doing it for? We're doing it for ourselves. When we sit in judgment with what life and death means to another individual, we're doing it for ourselves. We've got to let ourselves down so that we can look and go, what was I doing? Now, my funny thing is, whenever I do things like that, ever since death, I turn around and go, stop. And I'll go to somebody, that actually wasn't true. I just said that because it made me feel better. And my kids are like, would you stop doing that? Because I did that as a parent. I'm like, that's not, I just literally made that up because I need to get to here. And you guys are slowing me down. And so I made that story up so I could get you out the door. And they're like, oh, okay. And that's what the big issues, the big things the challenges we face in life, do the same thing. What story are you creating around it? Is it woe is me? Is it like, let's make this person feel guilty? Let's make that. Stop. This could be so much more fun. You're here because you wanted to be here. You're here because you wanted to be within the confines of what a 3D five sensory meat suit looks like. You came here for this. You came from glory into this. And it's like, then you fell for the trick that you were a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. I'm like, let yourselves off the hook. You came here to make the wrong choices. You came here to hurt people's feelings. You came here to grow within your own self-judgment. So stop it with the whole, I'm trying to become this evolved spiritual. You already are that. You already are that which you seek. And there it is in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And that is my near-death story.
Mary Helen, I'm listening to you, and each moment, like in my heart, I'm going, wow, wow, wow. There's so much to learn from your story. But I have a curiosity question before I ask my next question. How did you get back into your body? Like, was it like,
I always laugh because it was, since I broke my neck, I was like at lightning speed, at breakneck speed. It was the last thing I remember. The last thing I remember is the conversation about the raising of the bar. Oh, yeah, you're going back. We support that completely. We're here to serve you. What? Hold on a second. We're here to serve you as you do what you go there to do. And here's what that's going to look like. You're going to have an increased ability to do this. But it was actually quite vague, to be honest, because I remember as things began to unfold and I would touch somebody and I'm like, for the first time, looking at the hard drive, because that was different than having the dream that my dog died on a Wednesday when I was 11 and he did. Do you know? That was a very different, that was like viewing something and then being an active participant. And so I remember that conversation very distinctly. And then it was like, I got sucked back down the vacuum cleaner. And there I was on the pavement. And what was so weird about this Um, because like anybody who's a naysayer, there are so many of you who are listening to this who would, you're suddenly going to go, I think I actually had a near-death experience. Probably you did, because it happens very frequently.
Mhm.
And people like to, and mainstream media, oh my gosh, publishing companies with books and all this. Hey, yours is a much more valid story because you have doctor in front of your name. Get out of here. Do you know? But that's how they sell books.
Mhm.
And there are those though who didn't have the I'm hooked up on in a coma or I'm in a, like whatever. They had a moment that changed their lives where they exited and came back in a flash. That storyline is no more or less valuable than me breaking my neck in a car accident and going off to the hospital, because there I didn't get kept for any length of time because they missed my broken neck. And that was part of my story, because the chiropractor found the fractures in my neck because suddenly I can't swallow. And my journey wasn't to go down the medical route. My journey was to go into vitalism.
Mm.
So that had to happen that way. I had to get missed on a Saturday afternoon when they were changing shifts in a teaching hospital.
Wow.
So someone's story, just because they didn't, I've done interviews where they're like, well, how long were you dead? Why? Because 13 minutes is more valuable than 15 minutes, is more valuable than the 30 seconds where somebody's entire life changes forever. Stop it.
Mhm.
We have those experiences. And so in that moment, in that conversation, that's when I remember the explosion of going back in.
Mhm.
And Lord, y'all, it was like putting on all my socks, all my pants, a couple of sweatshirts, and a parka, and jumping into a swimming pool. That's what it felt like going back into that body. So that's how I got back. It was a thought. It was like I thought I've already made this decision. So like and it's like they're shouting at, okay, as I'm going, it's like, okay, watch out for what's coming next. And then sure enough, it did. These people started crossing my path. And,
Mhm.
I remember this one time I was walking out of the grocery store, and it wasn't maybe a year after this had happened, not even. And a man walked up to me that I didn't know, and he just started smiling at me. And I was like, hey, because I'll talk to anybody. And he looked and he goes, you're one of us. And in that moment, right in front of me, his chest, as clear as I'm looking at you, there was one spinning light, and then there was a second superimposed over it. And I was like, what is that? And he said, we all have it. So do you. And from that day forward, I couldn't unsee it. So anyone said, like, people are like, hey, do you know if I had a near-death experience? I'm like, no, yes, no, yes, because the heart chakra changes. And there's a footprint left here. There is a recording, a frequency recording of those who've been out of the realm and back in. So they
Mm.
remained tethered. Then, which I've later discovered, oh, that's a frequency. That's the sound I was hearing. It happens to be 963 hertz. You can go dance around, play around while still staying tethered to the mortal coil of this particular incarnation. But
Mm.
once you go out of that space, you got to suit up again in another experience.
Mhm.
And so, oh my gosh, it was crazy. And so he just looked at me and he was like, you've been there. And I went, I have. And then I was like, how do you know? And he showed me. And then I could never, ever unsee it again. So it was things like that where those things began to happen and people started crossing my path. Um, yeah, so that's the question. How did I get back in? A thought.
Oh, wow.
How did
That's
I unfold the gifts? And they just started walking up to me in grocery stores. And that's literally how it happens. The dreams were crazy. The things I could see, it was like everything was amplified. It reminds me of, I lost my hearing, so I don't hear out of my left ear. And I was actually with a healer many years later. And without my permission, and I mean this in the most loving way, he stuck his finger in my ear and my hearing returned, and we were in a public place.
mm.
And I dropped to my knees and I was ready to puke. It was so loud. It was so awful because in my path, I had trained myself to hear through the only one ear. And I had that hearing for 3 days, and they were the worst 3 days. um, and I was like, that was disabled for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Because when that came, when I was able to cut all that noise out, when I hear frequency and pitch, when I'm actually listening to someone's cancer, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing their Alzheimer's, when I'm hearing their suicidal thoughts, I'm hearing it through my deaf ear. And so this is where we learned in as far as healing goes and what we can contribute, where ego can step in and hijack a situation where that was, I gave you your hearing back. Well, I didn't ask for my hearing back because it was part of my process.
Mm.
And so I've always been very conscientious from day one because, 6 months after the accident, when real things started really getting weird, I remember touching someone for the first time and something happening. And I was like, oh my God, look what I did. And I was allowed to play in that arena for a couple of months
Mm-hmm.
until they came in with the ruler and went, seriously? Is this what you're doing? You think this is about you? And I was like, I was like a bold school child who had been reprimanded. And I was like, thank God I learned at that stage.
Mm-hmm.
This has nothing to do with you. If you think you're going to do this work, that's like claiming to be the nozzle that puts the gasoline into the car. You the nozzle that puts you're literally an instrument of peace. That's what you're doing. You are an instrument that is allowing vibration to play through you so that other people can hear their own symphonies. And I was like, thank goodness I learned that then. And I took myself out of that picture. And I think that's why I appeal to so many people because I'm just so raw and so real as far as this isn't about me, y'all. This is you're just as gifted, just as talented. It's, you can do things I can't do and I can do things you can't do, but we're all here to help each other that way. But I also don't feel enslaved to the idea that my value and worth as a human being in this plane revolves around if I can make your cancer go away or not. Because guess
Mm-hmm.
what? Sometimes people are supposed to die of the cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people do die in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that negates everything that we're trying to teach, which is I'm here to help people see, to feel, to experience differently because they've gotten so deeply ensconced in the game that they can't find their way out. They're losing,
Mm-hmm.
they're stuck in the muck.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just a muck cleaner. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we heal and we take out the garbage. Um, yeah, so
I actually, Mary Helen, you also have a very beautiful gift of communicating, like your words when you speak, when you talk, it just, yeah, there are usually I will ask my guests many, many questions about their story, but I kind of want your story to just be out there and let people feel your energy with that. So I'm not going to intrude, but I am curious. Do
you
you
ask
think?
away.
Do you think you planned your own NDE? Because you hear about some people on the other side that they have memories of planning
Yes.
or pre-birth memories of plan. Because the way you got hit, it was almost like it had to.
Ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Like it's almost it's so cliche, it's stupid.
Yeah,
That's
right,
what's so
right.
funny about it. I'm like, really? Like they literally set me up with all the best material because they knew I'd be doing this. I knew I'd be doing this, like the
Yes.
metaphorical crossroads of my life. It's like real, and there was. And with my college in a city of 350,000,
Yeah,
my college roommates back there. Oh my, like we've laughed about it so many times.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I wrote it in a way that made it easy because we all work in different levels with people. And so that's why I said I'm a more blue collar approach to this because I take something that is so complex, the physics and the metaphysics of the
Mm-hmm.
experience here, and just make it in bring it down to here's what it looked like, here's how it was. I'm like, there's no halo over my head. Like I am here doing all of it. I will be so used up when I get out of here again. Like I'm doing it all, everything, you know. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, but I do this, I smoke or I drink or I don't care.
Yeah,
I couldn't care less. It's not mine.
yeah.
Those are instrumental parts of your story and what you do. What I don't care what decision you made or didn't make. That's All I care is if you're making those decisions, are
Mhm.
you fulfilling? You know,
Mhm.
I'm sitting here with a 96-year-old woman who has been such a wonderful, amazing, integral part. Now we're having the deep conversations going, Mom, have you ticked this box? And people are like, you can't, you shouldn't talk to a woman in her last days that like that and all that. My job for her, and we're so open with this, is to make sure that she has the understanding. Anything that she slipped around, anything that a road that she took because it was less complicated or
Mhm.
it wasn't as confronting as far as what she was comfortable with. I'm like, you sure you want to leave that one behind? Let's talk about it. And so we're having these amazing conversations of stuff where she's getting the chance to go, oh, I totally see this now in a different way. I see where I was responsible for this. And
Mhm.
like, does that make, oh, finally, she said it? No, it's like, finally, she said it because she got that. And she's in here ticking off thousands of boxes, y'all. We're having the death of a lifetime, really. Do you
Mhm.
know? So,
Yeah. That's it's pretty incredible. And
so
you
did
are
I
good.
plan that NDE? I want to
Yeah.
go back to that. Yes. And so here was the thing. I remember the moment where I was told, that yes, I hear voices, guys, and I see people who don't look like us, and that's just me. And I couldn't give two shits if you believe in that or not, because that's none of my business whether you do. That's literally nothing to do with me. Um, but anyway, I remember being told for the first time, and it was explained to me how I had created the accident. And so again, I was so cliche. I'm like, I picked 21. I gave myself to the adult,
Mhm.
the proverbial adult at 21, which we know. How many 45-year-olds do you know who are not in the adult category? Has nothing to do with that. But I was just like, I picked that and I chose 21 to give myself the chance to find my own way back. And I hadn't done it. I
Mhm.
had all these amazing abilities and gifts
Mhm.
and forget about the people I was could be in service to, but I wasn't even being in service to myself.
Mhm.
And the accident was put in place so that if I hadn't managed to find my way there,
Mhm.
back to what I was going to be doing, the way I was going to be working here, the exchanges with people, the experiences, if I hadn't gotten there on my own, the accident was put in place in order to ensure. So I was always coming back.
Mhm.
I just didn't realize it.
And I have another question.
Yeah.
You felt like yourself the whole time that you were not in your body.
That was my favorite part. I'm like, yes, I'm me. I know me. I have my memories. Yeah, yes, that was a big
Yes.
deal. Because in this little incarnation as Mary Helen, it was one thing. I'm like talking to my dead grandfather all the time. You would think I would get this and I'd have no fears, but I was a kid. I still had reservations. And one of the things that used to freak me out about death was what if I forget who I was? Because I actually, like I said before, and I don't mean this in any way, shape, or form with arrogance. I just like myself. I like this
Yeah.
girl, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I was like, what if I can't remember me?
Hmm.
Idea of ceasing to exist.
Yeah.
I used to lay awake at night thinking about that until I didn't.
Yeah.
Because then I got to go, oh, I know exactly. And then some. I know me and every other me I've been.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing that because it's not alone. I don't think you're alone in that. I've had that
Hmm.
fear, and I know a lot of people, that's part of the anxiety we have with death is the fear of ceasing to exist.
Hmm.
Yeah. Or the
And that was such a
separation.
big deal. And that was why I think I had to experience it to be able to go back in order to come back in and go, oh, guys, I had that. Even though I know we are these amazing beings and that we live eternally and all this, it's so easy to say. But that's like telling someone who's in the middle of an anxiety attack, just
Yeah.
calm down.
Yeah.
Have you ever had one or had somebody tell you, just breathe, just calm down? I'm like, seriously, I'm over here having my body thinks I'm dying.
Yeah.
I'm having an anxiety attack. That's what one feels like. It's like you have complete loss of your senses. Yes, you know you're not going to die from a panic attack, but in that moment, tell your body that. It doesn't know. Everything is heightened and everything is on, four bell alarm, and you don't know.
Hmm.
So, regardless of what you know to be true or what you practice on a daily basis, some people have that true underlying fear that when we die, we cease to exist. You didn't matter somehow. And the idea of getting resorbed back into some source energy where I don't know myself, yeah, I was like, I'm not having it. Don't like it. Do you know? And so to get into a space and realize that every part of me was
Mm-hmm.
intact, it makes me laugh thinking about it. That realization, that understand, you're like, okay, I'm good. All right.
Yeah. And Mary Ellen, you said something that also brought me comfort. You talked about the life review, and it did bring me comfort because my background, I was in a church for 17 years that tended to be on a fundamentalist kind of a denomination. So, judgment was a very big word that I heard a lot. And I was deeply entrenched in that mind.
Mhm.
And so, when I started listening to near death stories, I brought that mind into it. And so the life reviews used to scare me. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, but who can go through life without doing no wrong? But you just said it so beautifully. You said we're
It's so
supposed to be,
awesome.
yeah.
It's so awesome because what you do in that moment too, I remember it's like I have this habit. We have this one when I drive from where I live in Ireland, from Athlone to Dublin, there's one toll.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always, before, now they've made it automated and they took this away from me. Um, they've made it automated and you can only tap once and then the thing opens and you go. But when it was money in hand, I used to always pay for the car behind me. And you think, oh, that's for them. And it made me feel good. But I'd be lying if I said otherwise, because there are some people who would drive up and I'd do it for the thrill. Some people would drive up and they're honking and waving, thanks. But my favorite were the people who are like, why did you just do that? And they're like looking at you as you're driving past, like, who are you? Why did you just pay that for me? I've got money. I can pay it myself. Why would you? And I would just, what right, wrong, and different, it would just make me laugh. I loved that moment. And so in that life review, you're looking and going, oh, the
Mm-hmm.
toll thing was just as important as that lady's brain tumor that we just got rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that
Mm-hmm.
thwarted suicide attempt because the guy suddenly remembered that he put himself here and he had to bring himself to the brink of making that choice
Mm-hmm.
again in order to make a different choice. That was just as important as walking out of the bank with their pen and going back in and putting it back in because I'd accidentally thieved it. Do you know? Everything matters. Everything. Reaching into the dryer to pull the clothes out with intention.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment, everything, every bill.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm right here. I have the potential for great anxiety right now. I literally, to come do this hospice with mom, I just shut my life down.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, "What are you doing? What about your house and your practice?" Well, I got my two dogs taken care of. A friend of mine has just come in to cover the practice, but it wasn't covered for 2 months leading up to that. So everything, I
Mm-hmm.
can make money so easily and I can get rid of it so easily because it just doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it could be a great source of anxiety where I'm like sitting here developing an ulcer. Oh my gosh, what if I finish this death process with my mother, which I get to do one time?
Mm-hmm.
I can make money anytime.
Time. Yeah.
And so for me to utilize what I had saved up or whatever, or I just put two kids through college. So
Mm-hmm.
like I work a lot. And luckily for me, I love what I do. So that's a real benefit.
Yeah.
And so I look in this at the potential of what we've got going on here, and I could be freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like the mortgage people called today. Hey, did you know you missed last month's mortgage? I did. Let me tell you where I am and what's going on, and I'll sort that out as soon as I get back. And they were like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this fear that people get, like you're not going to miss one mortgage payment and you lose your house. It doesn't work like that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
But they want you caught in the fear of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that might not be somebody's reality. They might be, but I did lose my home to this because it had gone on. And that was part of the storyline, their
Mm-hmm.
storyline. Well, my storyline with this right now is that I'll go back to my other life and I'll do what I need to do when I'm ready because I am not missing this.
Mm-hmm.
Because with my father's death, I was the one holding him back from going. So I had to leave.
Mm-hmm.
In my mother's death, I'm part of this end story.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's assessing every situation as it comes and seeing where you are. But like the potential for fear here, the
Mm-hmm.
potential for, oh my God, I have tended to the seed plot, the garden of my life so well that if I lost my home tomorrow, I'd have somewhere to go. I have so many friends who would be like, yeah, come stay. I'm not going to go hungry. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not, it's not this storyline. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't happen that way. So to take the risk to be here, to walk her through, isn't really a risk, is it? So everything that you do when you're looking at that life review, every choice that you make, it wasn't about I'm so great because I'm here taking care of my mom. I'm so great because I looked fear in the face. I looked the storyline of lack, of
Mm-hmm.
not having enough, and I went, you know what? Screw you. I'm over here. I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
so that's what a life review is about, where you suddenly realize that everything was important, not just the stuff that fared well, not the stuff that made you look good,
Mm-hmm.
not the stuff that brought great comfort and ease into somebody else's life.
Mm-hmm.
It was the little stuff where you had to face and where you had to sit with yourself, where
Mm-hmm.
you had to go, oh, I say one thing, but I'm feeling something else.
Mm-hmm.
You had to be honest with yourself and run it through this filter system just for you, not for anyone else, where you looked through and you went, wow, I remember when that happened. I remember what that felt like. And then instead, it's quite the opposite of sitting in judgment of yourself. I have such compassion for when I did that because I remember how I was feeling in that moment. I
Mm-hmm.
remember why I behaved that way. And so now the person that I think I hurt actually becomes the great shining teacher. Oh, wow. How can you get upset about that? And that's what a life review is about. So
And
the word judgment doesn't even belong in there.
no, thank you so much, Mary Helen. That's a beautiful, beautiful explanation. And I know you do a lot of the work, your practice that you were talking about. Um, I want people to be able to find you. I know you're going through the hospice with your mom right now, but when you're back, so it's the
I'm
best.
still working online. That's
Okay,
how,
awesome.
luckily,
Awesome.
no, the one benefit of knowing how things play out, it's like, do you know when your mom and died? Yeah, I know the minute my dad died, like it's just part of it.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm always like, you know what? Just watch my behavior. If you see me moving, relocating, pay attention to that. I'm here for a reason.
You're here for a
But
reason.
I spent the last 2 years, this is how we make things work out, and we don't arrive to the party with nothing in hand.
Mm.
I spent the last couple of years knowing that this time was coming. And so I created a way to support myself through that time.
Mhm.
So I'm still doing online
Oh,
sessions.
that's
I'm
awesome.
not in the physical, and
Okay.
then lo and behold, what happens when you vibe in that space? I am a chiropractor. I arrived to town and the chiropractor here injured himself and asked if I could cover him while I'm here.
My
So
God.
I am working. Do you know, like, so,
Awesome.
but it's that showed up for me because I showed up for me.
Yeah.
I showed up and when I'm doing this, do you
Yeah.
know? And it's
Yeah.
not about being irresponsible, but it's also not about, fear can have a voice, but not a vote.
No. Thank you. Thank you. So is your website the best way for people
That's
to?
it. MaryHelenHensley.com.
I am going to make sure that I put that in the description. And is that how if they want to reach out to you,
Yeah.
like they can use the contact
Yeah.
form?
My appointments are booked there. I know it's kind of weird, being in this because one of the things when I went online, I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to do online? Because I'm not wild about spending my day sitting in front of a computer. I have loved it. As a matter of fact, today, my first healing session of the day was with my very first healing session online a year ago to the date. And we had such a wonderful time and talking about her year in review and everything that had happened. And it was so cool because when you're used to doing things in hands, and it's so easy to again be so cliche and go, but yeah, but I'm a people person. I need to be touchy feely. And what child, I have made connections doing this
Yeah.
that have taken me into places across the globe that I would have never gotten into. And it has just done nothing but expand my heart. Do you know? Like it's just been incredible. So the very things sometimes that you use the excuses, I just don't like computers. And what if it glitches? It glitches all the time, y'all. I have to go off Zoom and jump onto a FaceTime and do it. And so what?
Yeah.
It wasn't a reason to stop me from doing this. It was reason put in place to see if I was going to make an excuse not to do it. But then all of a sudden, when I had to drop my whole life and run, Mama Helen has been a huge part of my story. But in realizing too, coming back here, it was giving me, 56-year-old little Mary Helen,
Mhm.
the chance to come back in. And this is the only home I knew. This is the home I grew up
Mhm.
all of my life, no matter where my travels took me. This is the place I've come back to visit. So
Mhm.
I'm ending a huge chapter of my own life.
Mhm.
The benefit of being able to be here and serve and make the end easier for my mother,
Mhm.
great side effect. But I'd be fooling myself if I'm not, I'm here for me. I'm
Mhm.
here because I'm closing that part of my life down. And this is what I'm talking about with the synergy being in line. If I was
Mhm.
I just closed my business down and oh my gosh, I missed a mortgage and my car payment because I'm here to serve my mother.
Mhm.
That's not real. That's
Mhm.
when people are doing something for a reason because they want to be seen. They want to be seen as great. They want to be seen as the one who showed up. They want to be seen and
Mhm.
that's not why I'm here. I'm
Mhm.
here because I see a mutually beneficial, synergistic exchange of energy for the woman who was my literal portal to get onto earth. And so I respect and I honor that. And I want to make this part easy for her
Mhm.
whilst simultaneously looking around at this, gosh, this I'm sitting where the Christmas tree used to sit and we unwrapped our presents at, like, and I'm putting closure to an end of a portion of my life because I'm able to. Every
Mhm.
life story doesn't have that. So I don't look at that lightly. This is a great honor that I find myself in a story where I have the opportunity to do this. So the best way to honor who we are is to go and make the most of that. Because one of the traps that people fall into is they become the dichotomy of dark and light here. Like look at American politics right now. Trying to separate us into the haves and the have-nots and the whatever, making people feel guilty that they have this, people saying one thing and going, yes, but you're not worried about what's happening in blah, da, 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 or you're not worried about these people here. And I'm like, well, that's funny because that kid down the road can't go to college, but I see you putting your kid through college. Why are you doing that?
Mhm.
If this person's not fortunate enough to do that, why are you educating your own child? And they're like, oh, it's
Mhm.
bullshit. All of it is just ridiculous.
Mhm.
The way to honor, the way you feel God's pleasure is by taking the opportunity that you created for yourself, the way you landed here, the opportunities, and by making the very most of that. That's how you shine. That's how you change. That's how you become a force of good. Not by
Mhm.
sitting here and diminishing yourself because you don't, it's not good for you to express your light because this every person over here is suffering.
Mhm.
That's just another trap
Mhm.
because on the divine scale, this person here who appears to be suffering, who's forcing you to make a choice to sh not shine your light or to shine as bright as you can, they're just creating that opportunity because they too, just like you, chose to come in. And this lifetime might just be what we call a breather, where they're coming in and playing this poor, unfortunate soul, but they're still the same divine, eternal, omnipotent light that you are. Don't fool yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. That's beautiful, Mary Helen. I could go on and on with you, but I have taken up more than the time I promised.
Listen, it's been my absolute pleasure.
Yes, and I'm just giving you a virtual hug because I just appreciate you so much,
Thank
so
you.
much.
I
And
appreciate the platform. I appreciate what you're doing. It's
uh,
important.
yes, and I want to let everybody know that's watching and listening. Your website is amazing, but Mary Helen has done a lot of interviews, and in each interview, you not only hear her near-death story, she has a lot to teach. So if you're ever looking for that energy,
That's a
that
nice way if
butterfly.
she never shuts up.
Well, I have stalked you a bit on different platforms. I hope you don't mind, but I have always something to learn from you. So I'm just encouraging everybody to go do that as well. All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you so much. You are
Thank
just
you.
so sweet and genuine. And that's why I was like, yeah, absolutely. My schedule's pretty booked. But you just walked up and here's what I love. Don't forget this, guy. She was like, I have this new podcast and I just want to, would you do? Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you.
And that's what you do because I appreciate you and because I appreciate the fact that you just walked up and asked. Ask. Nothing is unattainable, guys. You have to ask. It's only unattainable if you don't ask. And if it's not available in this form, it'll show up here because you asked, because you put that energy out and received it back. It's all about discovering that synergy.
Gee, thank you so much, Mary Ellen.
You've been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.